My name is Christy. I really hate my parents. What I particularly despise is how they always care about how they appear to others. They pretend to be kind to me only to improve their reputation among others. It feels like that's the most important thing to them. Because of this, I was always strictly disciplined at home. I was persistently nagged about every little detail of manners and how to speak. Of course I rebelled. However, they never listened to my opinions at all. In the end, they are only interested in being thought well of by others. So, I was expected to act politely. I told myself that this was normal. How much longer must I endure this? Will I have to live feeling this way forever? I want to run away from home. As a child, I was constantly trapped by such feelings. But surprisingly, a turning point came early. When I was in elementary school, a sister named Nikki was born. Nikki was cuter than me, and naturally, my parents' attention turned to her. Then, all of their love started to be poured into Nikki. Because of this, I was naturally able to distance myself from my parents. Maybe this would make things a bit easier. That's what I thought, but in reality, my parents' obsession didn't disappear. I realized this when I was in my 3rd year of high school. It became clear from my parents' reaction when I talked about wanting to get a job. Actually, ever since I was a child, all I had thought about was leaving home. I thought getting a job would be the perfect opportunity to leave home. I had been looking forward to this moment for a long time. However, my father surprised me with an unexpected statement. "You are going to university." I couldn't hide my surprise at his firm tone. Since Nikki was born, my parents' attention had completely shifted to her. Because of that, I thought they would accept my decision to work smoothly. Perhaps my father was considering my future a little. Why should I go to university? I asked, holding a sliver of hope. But my father crushed my hopes with his reply. "You need a proper education to marry into a good family." So that was it. Finally, it became clear that their behavior had been for this reason all along. They intended to use my marriage to make their own lives easier. "I want to work and be independent," I argued. "Then, will you prepare the moving out money yourself?" Faced with that retort, I fell silent. Because my parents cared about others' opinions, I had received a reasonable allowance. However, I didn't have enough money saved up to move out. Moreover, my high school banned part-time jobs. I saw no way to arrange the money for moving on my own. My father knew this, and that's why he had said that. As I remained silent, unable to respond, my father laughed mockingly and said, "How much money do you think we've spent on you? Can you repay that?" I was at a loss for words. "If you can't do that, then you're going to university." I couldn't argue against that. However, looking at it from another angle, it meant I could attend university for free. Even if my parents desired marriage talks or matchmaking, they couldn't unilaterally proceed without considering my feelings. Thinking this, I concluded that perhaps I should study at university and then leave home once I got a job. So I decided to follow my father's suggestion and go to college. I enrolled in a local university, but as my attendance was solely to obtain an education, naturally, living on my own was not allowed. My father wasn't interested in what I would study at the university. "You don't have to pay tuition, but you need to contribute to the household expenses. I'll allow you to work part-time." Just starting university, that's what my father told me. How much for living expenses? Maybe $500. I intended to study hard while at university. However, my father never understood that sentiment. As a result, I ended up juggling part-time jobs between classes. To me, $500 was not a small amount. With class reports and exams, I only had a few hours a day to spare for work. Somehow, I managed to earn just enough money. But I can't waste this opportunity. I sacrificed sleep to focus on university and work. My efforts paid off, and I was able to graduate from university. I even secured a job offer from a real estate company. I can finally leave home. That's what I thought, but reality was not so kind. I told my father about the job offer I had secured. "You can take the job, but I won't allow you to live alone," he declared. "Why not? What if you end up with some strange man if you live alone?" "I'll be fine." "No matter what you say, do not move out until you get married." "Why not?" "Then, can you repay the entire tuition for the university? If you can repay it, I'll allow you to live alone." "How can I possibly pay that? I gave all the money I made from part-time jobs to you." "Then, living alone is impossible," he said, laughing loudly. It seemed that everything was going according to my father's plans. He had predicted this development and had made me contribute my part-time job earnings to the household from the beginning. In the end, my life was progressing entirely according to my father's wishes. Will I never be able to defy my father? With these thoughts, I took my first steps as a working adult. However, a new problem arose immediately. Just after I started my job, my father suddenly retired. He claimed it was because of back pain, but that was just a pretext. It was clear he simply did not want to work and was planning to rely on my salary. Still, since he was family, I couldn't just neglect him. I seriously considered separating from my family at one point and even researched ways to cut ties. However, there is no real way to completely sever ties with family. No matter what happens, a parent is still a parent. That reality is not something that can be easily let go of. However, I couldn't give up and was thinking of ways to leave home. I believed that the day would come when I could support myself, so I was saving money. However, my father would not overlook such plans. One day, years after I had started working, I came home to find a cake on the desk. Did something happen? When I asked, Nikki happily said, "I got accepted into my dream school." "You got in? Congratulations." "Thank you." Nikki was clapping her hands with joy. I was happy for Nikki as well. However, my father's words quickly darkened my expression. "Nikki's college expenses, you'll pay for them, right?" "Me?" "Of course." "I can't work because my back hurts." What an irresponsible thing to say. Anyone could see that my father looked healthy, but I couldn't afford to anger him here. Besides, it's true that he has no money. If I don't pay Nikki's tuition, she won't be able to go to college. Understanding this, my father could remain calm. This would further delay my moving out. For my father, it's killing two birds with one stone, securing Nikki's education and preventing my independence. Nikki is a sweet girl. Thanks to her, I was able to maintain a relationship with my parents when I was young. Nikki may not realize it, but I am grateful to her. So, I decided to pay for Nikki's tuition. Looks like I won't be able to live on my own for a while. One day, I was voicing my frustrations about my father while drinking alone late into the night. Nikki started attending university happily. To earn money for Nikki's tuition, I worked even harder than before. Spending my days like this, I inevitably became utterly exhausted. One day, tired as I was, I left my wallet in the entrance at home when I went to work. I didn't realize it until I reached the station and tried to pass through the ticket gates. Oh no, my wallet. I remembered pulling it out at the entrance when I left the house. I hurriedly called home. Nikki took the wallet and headed to the station. My mother replied. Nikki did. She said it was on her way to university. Hearing that, I started running. Then I spotted Nikki at a deli near the station. It looked like she had done some shopping there, holding something in her hand. Nikki. Did you bring my wallet? Yes, here it is. Nikki pulled out my wallet. I immediately checked inside. I guess I'm not trusted, huh? The employee badge is in there. It would be a big problem if I lost it. There were also a corporate card and an IC card inside. I was relieved that no money had been used. Thank you so much. I thanked Nikki and quickly returned to the station. Thanks to Nikki, I made it to work on time. I need to be more careful from now on. Later, on my way home, I bought a cake to show my gratitude to Nikki. Nikki enjoyed the cake, and I was glad to have thanked her. However, at that time, I didn't understand anything yet. A few days later, Judy from accounting came to see me. "Christy, do you have a moment now?" She is a senior colleague who has been very helpful. When I was living frugally, she gave me clothes and cosmetics for free. She has helped me a lot with my personal life and work. So, I thought it would be a personal matter from her. However, contrary to my expectations, Judy led me to a secluded spot. "Why have we come all the way here? Is something wrong? It's hard to talk over there. I wanted to check something. Have you used the company card for anything other than sales recently?" The company card she referred to is a corporate card. It is issued by the company to manage expenses centrally. As I'm in sales, I am given an employee card. However, withdrawals are made from the corporate account, so it's immediately apparent if it's used for personal purposes. I shouldn't have used it for anything other than sales. I became worried. Although I had no recollection of it, it was possible that someone might have used it without my knowledge. While I was retracing my memory, Judy said, "There's a record of your card being used at a deli. Water was purchased. Do you remember anything about that?" Water. Deli. I racked my brain. Then, I remembered the day I had left my wallet at home. It was brief, but Nikki had had my wallet. I always carry my wallet with me at work. Thinking about it, the only person other than me who could have used the card is Nikki. Do you know the date the card was used? I wanted to believe it wasn't Nikki. If it wasn't the day in question, Nikki would be unrelated. It might have been me who carelessly used the company card. I hoped that was the case. However, reality doesn't always go as one hopes. The date the card was used was the same as the day I left my wallet at home. "Do you remember anything?" Asked by Judy, I blurted out. "I'm sorry, I think I used it thinking it was my IC card." I sometimes buy water at the station deli? I see. I'm sorry. I'll be more careful in the future. I immediately paid back the amount that had been drawn. Despite my awkward excuse, Judy kindly encouraged me, saying, "I've done something similar myself." The thought of the same thing happening again made me anxious. Therefore, I made a request to Judy. "It might be troublesome, but are you okay with that, Christy?" "I'm okay with that. I don't want to make this mistake again." "Then, I'll take care of it. Thank you." And so, the company was able to avoid making a big issue out of it. But there won't be a next time. If the same thing happens again, it will be treated as a major problem. That's why I took proactive steps. In any case, this was a major turning point. I had always believed that Nikki was a good girl. She grew up receiving my father's love fully. Moreover, she has never rebelled against him. But after this incident, I realized that perhaps Nikki has just been pretending to be good in front of everyone. It might not only be when she is outside, but also towards me. Thinking this made Nikki's smile feel unnervingly scary. My parents are trying to use me for their own benefit. That's why I've always been wary of them, especially my father. However, I now need to be careful around Nikki as well. This is troubling. Living in the same house as my parents and Nikki started to feel unsettling. I had always wanted to move out, but now that desire has grown even stronger. So I decided to talk to my boyfriend, Ken. "Really? Then, why don't you marry me and live together?" Ken said casually. What? I was at a loss for words. Ken continued. "Why don't you just marry me and live together? Being a civil servant, I think even your parents would approve of me." That might be true. Ken and I were classmates in college. We have been dating for over 5 years. I had also been thinking a bit about marriage. However, my family is not normal. It's not a situation where I can casually talk about getting married. Ken knows my family is not normal, and has always been there to listen to me. Still, he is trying to marry me. Please. With that, I decided to marry Ken. However, there was no time to indulge in happiness. There were many problems that needed to be resolved. The biggest concern was my father. I had no idea if he would agree to the marriage. How should I talk about it? I didn't know how to start the conversation with my father. However, time flew by quickly, and before I knew it, about half a year had passed. I really need to tell him now. Just when I was thinking this, a trivial matter led to a fight with my father. Don't make me say it again. I'm telling you to accept this man. I don't want to. I have a boyfriend. A boyfriend? What kind of guy is he? He's my classmate from college. He's a civil servant now. My words silenced my father. He seemed to be deep in thought. I continued. It looks like he's willing to give a decent amount for the betrothal gifts. He's from a respectable family. Foon. It seemed my father was hesitant. This might be my chance. I boldly pushed the conversation further. How much would satisfy you? Well, maybe $30,000. I was taken aback by the figure of $30,000. However, when I spoke to Ken about it, he agreed to pay the $30,000. Thanks to that, I was finally able to move out of the house. Once the negotiations settled, everything else proceeded smoothly. I quickly arranged the move. I booked a moving service for Sunday and moved. While packing, Nikki approached me. Make sure you pay for my tuition. I know. There's something I've been wanting to ask you. You used my card to shop before, right? Oh, you noticed that. Nikki showed no signs of remorse. I had wanted to ask her about it many times since that day, but the timing never seemed right. I finally mustered the courage to ask. But it apparently wasn't a big deal to Nikki. Using someone else's card without permission is a crime. We're family, so it shouldn't be a problem. Her response showed no sense of guilt at all. I was furious. I'll make sure to deposit your tuition in the account. But this is the last time. What? Once I leave this house, we're strangers. Do whatever you like. Nikki snorted and walked away. By the time the move was completed, it was getting dark. As I entered the living room to say goodbye, my father was waiting for me. Where's the money? All you ever think about is money. I'll leave it here. My dream was to make a profit by marrying you off to a wealthy family. Are you satisfied now? I've already contributed plenty to this house over the years. Yeah, now it's up to Nikki's future husband. My father laughed with satisfaction. The thought that he might come to my new home demanding money in the future irritated me. But I could just turn him away if that happened. Afterward, we had our last meal as a family. However, Nikki was not there. She seemed to have gone out to play with friends. It was a relief for me not to see her face. After the meal, I prepared to leave the house. But as I stepped out of the front door, I unexpectedly ran into Nikki. You're still here, big sis? Oh, right. I'll give this back to you. I looked at what Nikki had pulled out. It was my company card. I hurriedly checked my wallet. It's too late to panic now. I took it when I entered the room. Damn. I bit my lip in frustration. From this situation, it was clear the card had been used. That was the moment I became certain, Nikki said. I've paid for about 100 people's food and drinks with that card, so please take care of the rest. Then Nikki started spouting off one thing after another before I could even ask. Things like having a reunion or going to all-you-can-drink, trivial stuff. To top it off, she proudly mentioned she had been mindful of the card's limit and chose a $50 course. That really got to me. Who are you? We're strangers once I leave the house, for real? Oh, right, about the tuition. Nikki kept pressing. Check with Dad about the tuition, I said firmly, and left the scene. Then I started a new life in a new home with Ken. Not that anything significant changed, I had no intention of quitting my job just because I got married, so the only changes were my last name and where I lived. But for me, changing where I lived was the biggest change. I was enveloped in a feeling of freedom I had never experienced before. I enjoyed life with Ken, hoping this happiness would last forever. About 6 months into these days, Nikki showed up at my workplace. "I know you're here. Come out already." Nikki was causing a scene at the company reception. Hearing about this, I hurried to the reception area. "Nikki, what are you doing here? You tricked me," Nikki yelled at me. Then, holding up her bank book, she began to rage. "They told me the tuition hasn't been paid." "Explain yourself properly." "I definitely deposited the money." "Did you check it properly?" "What's going on?" "If they say it hasn't been paid, it means it's not there, right? Check your bank book again." "You're not a child anymore. Don't treat me like a fool." "I have a job offer. I'm a responsible adult," Nikki shouted out loud. Then, I sighed and said, "Look here. There's a deposit of $5,000, right? I made that deposit, but it's been withdrawn afterward, hasn't it? You're the culprit, right? Are you sure it wasn't you?" "I don't have the card, so I couldn't possibly do that." "That means it must be. Didn't you say before that you paid for 100 people's meals with the card?" "Eh? Meals for 100 people. Didn't you say you had a reunion? Have you forgotten?" As I questioned her, Nikki's complexion turned pale. Then, flustered, she began to speak. That time, it should have been paid with the company card. Not your card." She still didn't seem to understand. So I explained the situation in detail. The company card naturally withdraws money from the company's account. "That part is correct." "Then why? After you used the company card that was in my wallet without permission, I had the withdrawal account changed just in case." "How could you do that?" Indeed, Nikki had used the company card. However, I had changed the withdrawal account from the company's account to one I designated. This makes expense claims challenging, but it allows me to use the card for personal use. This comes with the benefit of not needing to carry multiple cards. Additionally, if the card is mistakenly used by someone else, it doesn't affect the company. So, when Nikki paid for the meals, the money was withdrawn from my personal account. Here it shows a payment of $5,000 was made. It's gone because you used it. But what about the university tuition? I deposited the money as I was told, so it's not my problem anymore. Why don't you figure it out yourself? Upon hearing this, Nikki started causing a scene again. After a while, the police arrived and Nikki was restrained by an officer. "It's a mistake. I didn't do anything wrong. You said yourself that you used my company card. What's mistaken about that?" "But I warned you the first time you used it that it's a crime." "No. It's your fault for not reflecting." Eventually, Nikki was taken by the police for questioning. However, I did not file a police report. There was no need for me to do so. That's because a video of Nikki causing a scene at the company had been posted on social media by someone. Naturally, it spread quickly. Nikki was disciplined by her university and expelled. Concerned about their reputation, my parents took Nikki and moved out of the state. They thought they could escape the scandal in a place where nobody knew about the commotion. There, they planned to find a husband for Nikki and get money from his family. However, since both my parents and Nikki are twisted, their plans didn't go smoothly, and I heard they quickly encountered trouble with the other party. "Christy, you're the only one we can rely on. Nikki has gotten into trouble with her partner, and they are demanding compensation." Only a month had passed since my parents had moved, but such a message suddenly came from my father. Given they caused trouble within just a month, similar issues are likely to continue. "I'm sorry, but if you come to my place, I will have to file a police report about Nikki's incident. I warned them." After that, the communication stopped abruptly. Though they supposedly had neither money nor jobs, I grew slightly worried. I hired a detective agency to discreetly investigate, and it turned out that all three were working at a logistics warehouse. Since the warehouse belonged to the company that Nikki had issues with, they were probably told to work off their debt if they had no money. Hearing that they were working all day in the dim warehouse, I felt relieved. This way, they could earn enough to cover the compensation and their living expenses. They should be able to support themselves without worry, so I decided to let them be. I am enjoying happy, fulfilling days with Ken. My work is thriving, and my sales performance is improving steadily. Thanks to my family moving away, my savings are also growing. Everything is going so well that it makes me a little anxious about the future. But for now, I want to fully enjoy this happiness I've achieved with Ken.